My name is David, and I probably could name some of you by name because I met some of you earlier, but I probably will have to ask you on the spot if I ask you questions. I will give you just a little bit of background about myself. I've taught Shurley English, it seems like a long time now. It's got to be 18 years having some dealings with it in one way or shape in the classroom, and how it came to me, which was such a blessing to me. But the other thing that happened is I began to, I guess, notice that the type of systematic training that Shurley English provided was also something that I could do with phonics. And I had used several phonics programs over many years, trying to figure out what would be the easiest and best way to teach it. I was taught phonics when I was a student in elementary school. My teachers were really good at that. We had a workbook. I remember the book. It was impressive to me. It was teal. It had a purple and a darker teal stripe, and it was going this way and that way, and I loved it. I really responded to it. I don't know why, but what has happened over time is phonics instruction kind of went by the wayside because lots of research has said, no, kids really don't learn phonics easily. It's too hard. The language has so many exceptions, and I understand that, and I accept that that's probably true, but what I found is that if you really get into it linguistically, it does make a lot of sense. There are lots of exceptions, yes, but if we can maybe weed out some of those exceptions and actually not consider them exceptions, they're really the rule and they work. Kids need to understand that our language is alphabetic. So it doesn't really make sense not to teach the alphabet, but by name it doesn't really help them. If they know the ABC song, which in the area where I lived, if they could say their alphabet, man, we've got a good start on our education. And I'd say, well, you've got a good start on what to call the letters. That's their name. But actually, letters are a picture of sound. And if you can get kids to understand that letters are a picture of sound, just like numbers are a picture of quantities, it's not really that confusing to think of it in that way. And I found that by teaching it that way, my students could really look at the letters as an entity in and of themselves. A lot of phonics programs that I watched as I taught, and I taught for 18 years, and it was amazing to me how little kids, and especially marginal learners, they just weren't always, they were just average learners. But if you showed them just a picture, and they showed them a word with that picture, every time they saw that word, they only saw that picture. And they couldn't figure out that dad and dog and dig were all different words because they weren't really paying attention to the infrastructure of a word. And it dawned on me that words are a context for sound. That's it. And if words are a context for sound, we probably need to teach, what those sounds are, or they're probably not going to get it. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions. I do want this to be as interactive as possible, and I am going to use the PowerPoint, which I know every teacher under the sun is probably sick to death of them, but they really will help guide this. But I'm more than willing to just walk away from the PowerPoint if we need to just have a real honest discussion. I understand that this is a new program for some of you, and it's really bulky. It's heavy, lots of stuff to know, lots of stuff to learn. And all of your experiences combined, you don't ever want to get rid of what you already know and what you've always believed is true and what's worked. So I would never ask you to do that. What I would hope is that this systematic phonics instruction is going to enhance what you already do, what you already know, and help kids figure it out even better. If they can't retain what you're teaching them, what we're teaching them is probably wasting time, in my opinion. When Shurley English came to me, one of the things that I knew was right is that it's so repetitious. Yes, that can be boring. I understand that. But the brain does learn through that. Neural pathways are built. And the same thing happens when you do sound cards with the phonics. Okay? So that's just to give you a little bit of information. I will talk a little bit about brain information as well. I'm not an expert in brain stuff, but I will tell you that I used to have a brain problem. I don't think I still have the brain problem. It scars on the brain. And as a result, there was a time in my history, in fact, over the last 20 years, where my speech would go haywire and my walking would go haywire and things were not great until I started doing things like singing jingles. Because the brain finds another route, and all of a sudden, I wasn't stuttering anymore, and I wasn't even limping anymore. Now, I won't say that it healed me. I've got other reasons for being healed, I know that. But I will tell you that because of the way it affects the way kids learn, the wrinkles that get developed through this kind of instruction, it stays. It just stays. And if it doesn't get rehearsed, it goes. Let's move on. Let's see if I can get this working. This, of course, is the PowerPoint, and you've seen them 1,000 times. But I want to talk to you just briefly about the overview of what we're going to cover today. And again, I'm not absolutely going to stick to this. If I need to move away, let me know. Letter sound jingles. That's obviously one of the key, it's the first step. It's the way that I always taught it, because it gives background knowledge to the kids too. And it gives them something to connect to later. I like to call it the hat and the hook that you put the hat on. Okay, that kind of thing. That's the idea we're looking at here with jingles. Sound cards, big component. Multisensory practice, bigger component. It is the thing. Jingles are great, and they're interactive, and they do stick to the brain. But the issue is, unless their hand and their eye and their body gets involved in this, it doesn't work as well. I mean, it will work, just not as well. Decoding. Every beginning reading teacher must understand how to get kids to see sound connecting together to make words. A lot of the research says, no, just give them lots of words. Lots of words, lots of wide reading, and they'll get it. And I'd say, yeah, a lot of kids do. And most kids really don't. They don't just pick it out. It would be nice if they could, but let's be really honest. Most of our kids, they're just average learners. And you probably have maybe a different cross-section where you probably have some really bright learners. All the more reason to give them as much knowledge and background as you can about the language, because it's so exciting if you can catch the fire and let them catch the fire too. Word analysis. Wow. It blows some people away. They don't even see the reason for it. I didn't either. But what I found is that I was a natural speller, and I did not realize how very important spelling is to the reading process, to the meaning process, to the understanding of what all these words mean. Because once you start getting into homophones and homographs, oh my gosh. It's all about meaning, and it's all about, well, which word is that? How's it spelled? Because how it's spelled determines what it's going to mean. And how it's used in the context of a sentence is like that's the final kick. Well, if kids can't even get to the first part of that, they can't get to the second part of that easily. They will. Kids learn in spite of us. But let's make it easier. Word patterns. I was talking briefly before we got started. I can't remember. We were talking about patterns. I believe you made the comment about that. One of the things I love about patterns is that's one of the first things the brain does. It loves patterns. And that's not just for children. It's for all people. And what we try to do purposefully in Shurley English and in the Shurley Reading is let's not hide the patterns. Let's make it pretty obvious. And then let's really show them the steps so that they make a connection, even for those kids that are very marginal as learners. Formative assessment. It's just the daily sound quizzes. And of course, you say the word daily, and teachers are going to pull hair out, they're going to throw things, and they're going to kick desks and things like that. I will try to show you how I fit it all in and made it pretty seamless. And it was just the process. It's what I was committed to, and the kids became committed to it as well. Literature analysis. We do have a reading piece in the book. I believe Mr. Murphy was asking the question earlier, what about that? Do you have a collection of those books? No, they're just recommendations. And the kinds of questions that we have arranged, they're models. If you have your own selections that you want to use, fine. But I really encourage that the whole point behind it is ask delving questions. Ask questions that are meaty and that really require kids to think. Okay, so the first easy thing to tell you is use our suggestions. I think they're great. Use our questions. I think they're fine. They're excellent in some cases and really excellent in others. I'm really happy with some of the things we have in there. I was like, oh, please do this. It's really fun. But you don't have to. That's one of those areas where you can just adopt and use what you've always done in the reading piece after they're really reading well. The jingle, the first one. The alphabet jingle. I just made this up. In fact, I made it up while I was running. And I like to run a lot. So this is the way that I would spend my time running. A says A, B says B, C says K, S, D says D, E says E, F says F, G says G, J, H says H, I says I, J says J, K says K, And L says O. Watch my mouth. O. M says watch my mouth. N says watch my mouth. O says O, oo. P says P. Q, U says Qu. R says S says S. T says T. U says U, and V says V. W says W. X says X. Z. Y says Y, I, E. Z says Z. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That did deserve applause, I have to say. Now, why? Why would I do that while I'm running? Well, first of all, that's when my brain is most active. That's it just is. All these wonderful ideas or bad ideas, stupid ideas, that's what happens when I run. But this is really, really cool because I needed to pre-teach this information. And of course, that's what we did with the ABC song when they were 2. So why not actually really teach it? That's fine. The ABC song is not bad. You should teach that. But that's the name of the letter, not the sound it stands for. Okay? And I do like to say the letters, that's what they say. And I've talked to other linguists and say, no, never say that the letter says something. And I'd say, no, because letters are real to me, and I think that they're really special friends of mine, and they do talk, and I want kids to understand it, okay? This was one of the first things that when Brenda Shurley and Ruth Wetzel started dealing with me and the content that I wanted them to kind of say in a way that people could understand. Why would you teach 6 vowel sounds? Why would you do that? When I was a kid, I remember a chart in my elementary classroom, and it had all the vowels, and it was A, E, I, O, and U in that order, and sometimes Y, and then sometimes W and sometimes H. What? Yeah, and a lot of it comes from where those letters actually came from to us. Now, do we bother teaching a lot of that? No, I teach some of it. It's not absolutely essential that you know that, but it's pretty cool to know because we're going to deal with that when we get to the phonemes. Vowels I and E have 2 sounds. They're short and long. So it's I and I, and and E. Now, watch what's happening. If I'm working with a very small child, and they're not watching my mouth, and they might have a hearing problem, they might have tubes in their ears, they might have had infections from the time they were born, they cannot hear the difference between I and They just can't hear it. So if you teach I and E together, we're in serious trouble unless you space it out somehow, okay? Vowels A, U, and O have 3 sounds. Now, I have been having some major conversations about vowel U because it's a devil. It's a terrible, terrible vowel. And this is why. It actually has 4 vowel sounds. It's U, oo, and then And I only introduced 3 because it fit better in my jingle. Yeah. I couldn't make it work anyway. And I will get into that a little bit later. I will tell you it's not an exact science. I will also tell you that if you go and look up all this information I'm going to give you today and go to a linguist's site, they'll say, yeah, this guy's nuts. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I would tell you, well, yeah, maybe I don't. But I will tell you that I had to simplify it for my kids. I mean, if I were to go strictly, without any fudging on what was linguistically correct, there's not a one of us that would understand this. Not one of us. You think this curriculum's heavy? Go talk to a linguist, and we've got real issues to really dissect. And there's no reason to do that because this is for kids. And I want it to be simple enough for them to understand. And as a teacher, after a while, you start becoming the expert, and you won't even have to rely on a lot of the curriculum anymore because it'll just be locked in, which is what our goal is for the kids. Now, let's talk a little bit about these 3 vowels, A, U, and O. A says a, ah. Okay? That 3rd uncommon sound, that's why I call it that. I can't call it anything other than that. It just doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And if you don't tell kids that that's going to happen, and they know that it's a and a, oh boy. Well, what about ma and pa and ta? And what about every time there's an L? What do you do with that when there's an A in front of an L? What are you going to do? Oh, we've got to talk about this sound. How about O? I was talking just to the authors yesterday, and the question was, what words have oo? Just O saying oo. And immediately I went, do, to, Only 2 of them? Well, there are probably others. But what happens is they fall within words, in syllables, inside bigger words. So if they don't know that it can do that, we're in trouble because they'll make it go ah, or they make it oh. We have to show them that there's more, okay? What do you notice about bird, herds, earthworms? What do you notice about those? Yeah, there are controlled vowels. And what I found was really hard for first and second graders and kindergartners. Those R's are really hard for them because everything's, they can't get their tongue around it, so have them suck applesauce and then you'll probably be in good shape after about a year. But this is fun. It's just a fun song. Again, I wrote it while I was running, and I don't know why I was thinking about cowbirds, but I knew that I needed to come up with something that had ers in it, and there are 5 special ers. And so that song helps to emphasize that. The prefix jingle, suffixes for silent final E jingle, the Y words jingle, fun things that happen with Y words, and the OUGH jingle, which I understood is really hard because there are 6 sounds. My kids, that's the one they remember the best. O, U, F, F, A, L. There are 6 sounds this letter T makes. O, U, F, F, A, L. You'll read dozens of new words, make no mistakes. I said, O, U, F, F, A, L. They get it. They do. Now, letter sound jingles. This is why we do the jingles, same reason why we do the grammar jingles. It's an instructional tool, obviously. You have to teach them to utter these sounds correctly, and so they do need to be able to sing the jingles with correct pronunciation as well, all right? This does help hearing and practice hearing correctly. I have found that kids do not naturally know how to listen. They hear lots of stuff, but they don't know how to listen. And I force them to. So if I see people talking or kids talking in the classroom, and I want to apologize if I wax back into my first and second grade teacher mode, because this is an intense way to teach, and I expected them to watch everything my face did, everything. And you've got to watch my mouth. If you miss what I am saying and you don't see it, you're probably going to misunderstand something, okay? And that was really super important for my kids. And after a while, I was like, watch my mouth. I know it's ugly, but watch it, and you'll get it. And they did. And then they realized, and because listen, which one was which? Hard to tell. So that's not a cliche. That's not a cliche. It's a clue, is a cue for you. And I'm going to try to model some of the things I just did in the classroom using this kind of program to help you see how you can envision yourself doing it. I strongly believe that if you can mimic what I'm doing today, you'll probably find some real value to it. Look at this. And this is important because I don't know what kind of phonics instruction or phonemic awareness instruction you've had, but a lot of times you have heard the pronunciations for consonants to be, that's B and K and duh. Ooh, we got a problem already because we have a short value after every one of those, and later for spelling, woo, troubles. Big troubles. So it's a quick sounding, and then you jump back off of it again. That's exactly how I tell the kids. Say it quick, and then get back off of it. So this is b, b. Now you will still slightly hear a little sound, so don't hang on to it very long. But let's make sure that that's what you're doing when you're instructing them in this kind of phonemic awareness. Reading jingles provide the foundation. And sound cards, that's a key strategy, but it is just a strategy. I will tell you, however, I couldn't do what I do phonetically with kids if I didn't have the sound cards. Just can't do it. And you can do it digitally, that's no problem, but I'm pretty much old-fashioned because I like the cards and I like to be able to manipulate them myself. I think kids like them too. And all of the stuff that I know in my head is right here. Because I don't really know it in my head. I've got it on the card. It's a big cheat. And it's a really important thing, though, because it helps me not look like I don't know what I'm doing. Sound cards are organized in sets of sounds. I call them similar attributes. That's just fancy word talk. I noticed that the phonemes that I know, they kind of fit into groups. And they're really logical groups to me. And I don't know if I'm the only one who made that connection, but I arranged them to suit my need. Now, my suggestion to you is if you don't like the way I arranged them, arrange them another way if you want to. That's flexible. Do it however you need to do it. Just don't not do it, okay? Bert the bird herds earthworms. He's a genuine cowbird, don't you know? Though the earthworms wriggle and they dance and they squirm, Bert the bird's lasso holds tight and firm, and with a grin and a nod, he leads them to the side. Bert the bird herds earthworms. Now Bert wouldn't hurt a flea, but earthworms are his delicacy. They're delicious and nutritious, and though it may sound vicious, Bert the bird loves earthworms. Now the end of our song's in sight. Let's sing it with all our might. And just in case you haven't heard, there are 5 special sounds for Just take it from Bert the bird. Bert the bird herds earthworms. Now, nothing to it. But what I have found is that because little ones have a hard time pronouncing it, this is just practice. They get it over and over and over and over again, and it's fun, and they remember it, and they just don't let go of it. And that's pretty important because, again, if what we're teaching isn't sticking, we're probably wasting time. Spelling notebook. How many of you who have actually worked with this program know what we're talking about when I say spelling notebook? Raise your hand if you know. Okay. It's really just a student-created textbook, if you will. And it looks a lot like this. And the reason I wanted you to have the things that you have here today is so that you can kind of, I want to model it with you a little bit, see, so you can adjust it however you need to. But basically, this is all we're going to do. We're going to label it a certain way, and the kids will use this every day. Top line, midline, baseline. I'm a handwriting nut. I think it's extremely important. I understand that you do have a handwriting instruction piece. That's fantastic. With this, I have found that it's integral to the brain, the eye, the hand. It's so important that they learn how to write it and see it and say it and speak it all at the same time and hear it chorally, because that also really deeply entrenches it in the brain. And that's one of the reasons why you're helping their brain make some wrinkles. And it's so, so valuable for them. And later, it actually probably will help them with their handwriting. I don't know. I've never tested that to see, but it's a good thing to do. That's the top line, midline, and the baseline. Now, I like this paper because it's colored. You know, I can say, go to the red line, that's your baseline. This has a lot of extra spaces between it, and there's the only model I could find to put on the screen. You don't really have to use that kind of paper, but I would strongly encourage it because they really have a traffic problem on paper. And they need not to crash through the baseline, and they need not to crash through the ceiling, and we want them to learn that this line is there to help you. It's your guide. When you're setting up your spelling notebook, and I'm going to have you do this with me, and I hope the light in here is enough that you can do this. And typically, I probably would walk around and just, hold your hand a little bit, but I think you're probably able to do it. You're going to set it up like this. Top left corner, set 1. Top right corner, name and date. Now, the next step is I just plow right into it. And I'm going to say it, and then I want you to say it. Ready? A, ah. Now you. A, ah. Okay, you'll notice that it has 3 sounds. Okay, this is the first sound. It's in black. And I also allow regular pencil, so you don't always have to use a black color pencil. In fact, black doesn't show up sometimes very well, and it almost looks like a regular pencil. So that's either one, doesn't matter, but definitely blue. Blue vowels are always long. Red vowels happens only on A, U, and O. That's the third uncommon sound, okay? So what's going to happen in just a moment, since you've never done this before, boys and girls, or in this case, just girls, because I guess you're all not participating, guys. I'm going to show you what it means to do multisensory practice. And I always told my kids, we're going to do multisensory practice. And they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. But all I said is, we're going to say it out loud together. I'm going to write it. You're going to write it at the same time. You're going to hear each other say it, so that supports you. And then we're going to do it over and over again. And we're going to fill up a baseline. Okay? Now, since you all are adults and you probably don't need me to guide you too much on that, just remember that the little kids, they really do need you to do that. Okay? And if you taught for any time at all, you already know that. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. This is what's going to happen. I got to remember, this is chart paper, and so I get to use these 3 markers. Why am I using markers? Why am I allowing the kids to have a tool like this? Any guesses? What it does is it teaches them to subdivide information very quickly. They have to become pretty agile about it. You have to control the speed at first a lot. These little hands have a really hard time gripping pencils sometimes in the first place. I would strongly encourage you to get rubber grippers. And that way you're also kind of helping the hand muscles and the fingers to use the pencil in a vice-type fashion that really helps them. And you're going to have to be extremely patient. All right? So here's what I would have my kids do. We're all going to say it at the same time. We're going to write at the same time. And I know you probably can't see my dotted middle line, but I'm going to be using the dotted middle line. And we're going to say together. I'm just modeling it for you right now. And I'm not going to put the lid on that every time because it just takes forever. And I probably have to put that down every time. Start with me. Go ahead. And I want you to start writing. Okay, now, I'm trying to write as neatly as I can, although I can tell that it's kind of bouncing on me, so that's probably not going to be the best that I can do. Now, when I'm teaching this card, all of you who know this program already, there's a verse that goes with it. Okay, so I'm going to complicate things just a little bit, because in the instructions, what I'm going to have you do is this, and it tells you right here. It says, show the front of the card 1 to the students, and then use the information below to introduce review card 1. I say it, then you say it. A. Vowels A and U and O and E say their name at the end of a syllable, you see? And they do, most of the time. There are exceptions, but most of the time they do. Now, are these kids going to understand that right now? No, not yet, but we're just front-loading some information. However, on the cards, it then says, write these examples on the board. So, I'm going to write them on the board. And we have, wait, is this the right one? I'm so panicked that I'm going to use the permanent one. So guess what? We owe you $13,000, I think. Okay, watch. Bay. Okay, can't put that in with that. Leave that off. And I need a space here. They don't understand why yet. Baby. Vowels A and U and O and E say their name at the end of a syllable, you see. So this is not babby, it's baby. Okay? Now there will be exceptions later to other words, but we don't have to worry about that yet. We're just starting at the beginning. Okay? So that's one example. How about super? Okay? Now I'm going to say it the way some people like to say it, which is super. And that's actually correct. Super. But our tongues don't like to do that because of the placement inside the mouth, so just say super and it'll be fine. Because remember, U actually has this extra fourth vowel sound that I cheated and didn't say. It's U and U, so it's super. All right, so watch again. Su. Per. Super. Vowels A and U and O and E say their name at the end of a syllable, you see. Now, here's what I would tell you. If your kids are not, if they're not tracking with you very easily yet, don't panic. It's okay. We're just trying to give them an example to tell them that I'm not lying to you. This is how this works, okay? And then there's another one, and then I want to tell you some more stuff here. And this is where a lot of teachers, I know, they're like, what? I have to tell them all this stuff and then they're supposed to repeat it? Yeah. Just do it in small bite-sized pieces. It's okay. The first one is, A is a symbol for what? A vowel, okay? It's a symbol for a vowel, and it makes 3 sounds, A, and ah. Its letter name, I'm reading all this. Its letter name is A. And I always have my kids understand the difference. Its name is A, but its sounds are A, and ah. Kind of an important thing. And then, all 3 sounds of A are voiced. Okay, girls, here we go. How can you tell if a sound is voiced, and what difference does it make anyway? Well, for pronunciation, it's pretty important, okay? But what's nice is it turns it into something they can really feel. So if you want to check to see if a sound is voiced, all you have to do is lightly place your fingers on the voice box in front of your neck like this. And I have every kid do it. And I want you to say, ah, with me. Ready? Ah. Let's do A. A. Let's do ah. Ah. What do you feel under your fingers? It's a vibration. And I want you to remember, it's a vibration. You might, there are some other sounds that, well, I feel something there. No. Is it a vibration? If it's not a vibration, we're not talking about voiced, okay? If it's voiced, you will feel that vibration because the sound, the air is rolling around down in here, okay? If it's unvoiced, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, you won't feel it. That's really important because there are some children that are hearing impaired in some way, shape, or form. And this is just another way to make sure that they're really hearing it, even if they can't always hear it well. Okay? Let's see. What else do I want to tell you about A? This is taking a long time for A, but I go through this really quick once we get to the next practice. Okay? So, An A before the letter L often sounds like ah. That's the third uncommon sound. An A before letter W always sounds like ah, because that's the ah phoneme. And then an A after the letter W sometimes sounds like ah. Do they need to know all that just yet? Probably not. So don't teach it just yet. Teach it when they're ready. But it's here for you when they're ready. All right? And a lot of teachers are like, well, I just don't know what to do. I mean, you said I'm supposed to repeat all that stuff, and I have to repeat it over and over again, and they have to do all of it with me. Yeah, eventually, yeah. Just don't get too panicky about it. You have to remember, if you're writing a textbook, I have to account for everybody who knows nothing about it. So you got to have all the information here, and then you pick and choose as the expert in your classroom what your kids can handle and what they cannot handle. And the most important stuff is all up here anyway. But get them to do all of this over time. And then, of course, there's a fun little jingle here. When W comes before an A or an L comes behind, the third uncommon sound of A often you will find. So what's a really cool cue for kids is look at that word. You see W, you see A, you see L. Guess what? The A's probably going to do the ah thing. Just because that's kind of what it always seems to do when it's around the W and the L. I don't know why. It's just the way our language works. Now, let's move on just a little bit. They hear the sound of the letter in front of the card, and then they repeat it aloud. And there's mnemonic verses. I don't know how mnemonic they really are. It's just that they're repetitive. Okay? This is the picture of the back of the card. And that's the lower part of it that I just read to you. And that's the little jingle I just read to you, or sang to you. Now, again, teach this when it's ready. Water, all, walt, wash, all. The L and the W are integral to the ah sound for A. And you know what's really cool is kids think, so they like have power over the A? Yes, they do. They really do. It's really awesome. If I were an L or a W, I'd be so lucky. And if you can get silly with the kids and teach them this fun stuff about sound, they start to get really excited about it. Teacher notes. If you just don't have a lot of background, we try to provide that as well. It's over on the right-hand side of the card. Oh, I do want to say this real quick. You notice I did this. A, kind of important. You can do it this way. A. I'd rather you not. I think it's just better for them to see physical motion with it, okay? Just read that. That's what we're trying to do. Sound cards are like a way to practice perfectly every single time. They're as old as the hills, and that's because they really do work well. Are you done reading? Yes, go ahead.
How the letter A, so you did how long would they do that?
I would tell them fill up a baseline. And here's the thing. Now,
Is there a reason why you do them so close together?
yes, there is. I'm so glad you asked that. I don't like to talk about a lot of that information right up front, but I'm going to do it so you address it. I tell my kids, write these so close together that only the tip of your sharpened pencil lead can fit between them.
I feel like as teachers, I'm kind of like, oh, why are we doing this?
Okay.
We're like finger space.
Yes, and I will tell you that if that's what you're used to doing and it works for you, don't worry about it too much. It's okay. I do this for spacing purposes. I have to also address the fact that there are some children, they've never really looked at written words. They don't get that if you stream all the words together, and you've seen this happen in kindergarten, they have to understand that there's a space between words. And the finger space kind of works, but when they read books, they're really close together, aren't they? And so I just want to get them adapted to that same kind of visual effect. And the reason is when we get ready to do sound quizzes, I want to see if they're picking up on the spacing without using their finger. And only because, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do, but for some kids, boy oh boy, I've watched them in 6th grade. Especially, they know they've got some issues. They're still they're physically manipulating it. How fast are they going to get through anything by doing that? Now, am I saying that every kid's going to do it? No. But you should be watching very carefully, because if they're starting to show that kind of thing, you know, hey, we need to talk to some special help teachers, We need to understand that not everybody's going to learn it the same way, and we don't want to force them into a mold that they can't fit into. However, this is standard. They've got to be able to do this. And if they can't, then we've got to address it pretty quick. Okay? Does that answer the question okay? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, again, what did I say? Do you have to do it this way? No, not really. I have to tell you, Brenda Shurley, she just wanted to rip what little hair I had left on my head because I kept saying, no, I really need to be really spaced close together. Why? Because I'm trying to teach them spacing stuff. And she said, why not the finger space? Okay, we'll do the finger space. Okay, this is just to show you what you just did on your paper, because those of you who have the digital program, this is kind of how you're going to need to see it. And this is what you're going to have modeled on the screen. A, ah, vowels A, N, U, and O, and E say their name at the end of a syllable. You see? A, ah, vowels A, and U, and O, and E. You get it? I'm not going to continue. But that's what we're going to do with every phoneme. Okay? And I have to do this like this because I don't want... Oh, here, let's do this. We're going to get you some coding. So we've gotten to the A card, and the next one up, and by the way, this is all happening in the same lesson. Now, are you going to teach all this to the kids? I know, it's like, what? I know. And here, I have to tell you, if that's too much, you know your kids. I'm giving you everything. You're not going to give them all of this, okay? You can give it, if they can handle it, give it to them. If they cannot handle it, do not. However, typically, and I'm going to keep doing this. Let me show you exactly how I do it with my kids. I'm going to quit giving you the background now because you got enough of that. Let me just show you what happens. I'll say it, then you say it. Ready? Zzz. Now you. How many sounds does this have? Two. Good. What's the first sound? Yeah. It sounds like what creature? Snake. Yeah. And listen. Zzz, that's the second sound. What's that sound like? Zzz. Bees. So, guess what? Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Let's do it together. Ready? Oh, nah, I'm sorry. Keep with me. Zzz. Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Let's do it one more time. Zzz. Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Pencils to the ready? And we're going to go, I got to read which one's right. I'm going to the chart. Okay, so this is, it's a consonant. And since it's a consonant, it's black. It's always black. Don't have to change anything. Isn't that awesome? Actually, no, it's more fun to do vowels. But okay, we're going to stick with the zzz using black. And I'm going to show you something special so you'll never get confused if I'm dealing with the first sound or the second sound. It's called a line code. So try to do this with me. Ready? Zzz. Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Zzz. Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Zzz. Snakes and bees sound a lot like these. Okay, I'm going to stop there for just a moment. Yes?
Okay. Are you putting the lines under it? Does it matter if you put the lines under one at a time, or do you have to do it at the end?
Brilliant question. Thank you. And I know why you're asking that, because you know. Will it do them any good to line them up at the very end? No, not a bit. Won't make anything. They'll just go, oh, this is fun. And it means nothing to them. They have to do the s and the z and do the line codes right then and there. Because then it chisels it out in the brain. S, one line, z, two lines. S, one line, two lines. Now I want you to notice something I'm doing. Are my hands moving in the direction we read and write when I do this for you? Not for me. For me, it's all backwards. But I trained myself to make sure, as far as they're concerned, this is where it has to start. For me, it's like, oh, we're in England or something. It's all backwards. Oh, this is Greek. No. I just had to train myself. And I'm also an amateur tap dancer. Guess what? I'm so uncoordinated, and left and right are really hard for me. But I can do this, so I know I can tap dance. I can get it. And if you can train your brain to do it, your kids eventually, they'll never have to make that leap if you do it this way. And if you do it this way, guess what you're doing? Messing them up. Don't go backwards for them. It's backwards to you. You can been through school, right? You got it. It's not hard for you, is it? No, but it's so important. Okay, now, let me ask you. If I were to skip out of the multisensory practice, do you feel like you understand what this multisensory practice thing is about? Because this can go ad nauseum. It can go forever. Because there are, how many cards? 74? There's a bunch of cards. Yeah. There's a bunch. Yeah. And you're not going to do all of them at a time, obviously, until later. But I will tell you that my first and second graders, and I taught a dual classroom, we would just whip through these after they knew them all. And they got everything that they needed. And I knew they were getting it. Why? Because they could tell me. I just eventually began to be quiet, which was hard to imagine, but I could do it. And they were teaching me. And when we had substitute teachers, they were teaching the sub-teachers. And of course, the teachers were like, I don't get it. What are they doing? Are they right? Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're right. I'm pretty sure. All right, so I do want to show you just a little bit more of how easy it is if you keep these loose. However, Gail, along with another colleague, devised this. Excellent way to do it. It's just a good way to stay organized if you're that type of person and you just lose things easily. You can put them in these see-through little thingies here, and it's very easy to hang on to them. Do we provide them? No. You have to buy those someplace else, okay? Oh, I'm spitting, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the danger of being very, very close to the audience. I will tell you, if you do this, however, you still have to do this. Okay, and so now you're moving the whole blooming thing. It's a little heavy. If you're into aerobics, it's not a problem, but great way to keep them organized. This is the way I like to do it with kids. And I actually I'm going to do it here. You ready? A tooth tablet that taps the back of the top two teeth. Lip popper. U, Vowels A and U and O and E say the name at the end of a syllable, you see. And you know what? This vowel thing comes up every time we do an A, U, O, or an E. And so they get lots of practice once you're starting to review this over and over again, and they know it. They know it really, really well. And we keep going. B, B. This is the other lip popper. Okay? And then another feature of the cards, just so that you can see. Kids have a hard time with B and D and P and Q. Because the B and the P and the Q and the D, they're like, for some kids it looks exactly the same every time. They just don't understand. So they can make a bed with their fingers using that. That's a good way to do that. And then the P's and the Q's are real simple because in English, the QU is together. So they don't struggle so much with that. Now, in isolation, it's a little bit of an issue. Girls, are we okay? Are we having a problem? Okay, I'm just asking. Here we go. Ready? Plain old. Say that with me. Ready? Plain old. Now, why am I calling it plain old? It's not PH. And there is a PH that says it's the PH digraph. And here's another thing that happens. At the ends of words like rough and tough, well, that's actually part of OUGH. And lo and behold, all of a sudden we have all these weird letters and then we get the sound. I don't know how that happens. So this is just plain old. Ready? C in front of EIY sounds like S, but C in front of AUO sounds like K, don't you know? Oh, thanks. That's one of the nicest things I've ever been called, believe me. Okay, here we go. I say it, then you say it. G, J. Now you know this from hard G, soft G, right? Okay, and I still call it that, and it's in the book that way. It's on the text, whatever way you do it. However, it has some special rules, and just like the C, that has a hard C and a soft C, but I like to have the little mnemonic verse that goes with it because it's just clearer. If they get it memorized, it's just so much easier. Some kids, believe it or not, cannot hear it. They just can't. And if they can't hear it, then give them the mnemonic verse with it, and then they've got it. Okay, that's just another way to get it in there. And this says, G in front of EIY might say J. And I just might do that because it's different from the other stuff I do. And they remember that. The brain likes novelty. And it will pay attention to it. So do something weird and wacky, and they will not forget it. Just remember to do it the same way every time.
On
Here we go. Eyes here. Ready? I. Oh, I just waxed into the teacher thing. Sorry. I. And listen to this one. I love this one. Words from English don't end with I. Instead, at the end of a word, use Y. Now, I said words from English. This is just a quick little teach. We get our language from a lot of other places. And I want the kids to understand that it might have just derived somehow in our area, in America, but it might have come from another place and another time. And it probably is a borrowed sound and a letter that we're still using. And so if it's a word from English, guess what? If it ends in I, it's probably not really from English. And that's important to know. Why? Because I think it is. And kids think it is too. And they love knowing that they know this. And later, it's really important when we get to vowel Y. I love this one. The breathy sound. I wanted to call it the stinky sound. Oh, yeah. But we found that that was not kosher. So it's the breathy sound. Now be careful, because this actually goes, ha, ha. You can do that. But most of our words, it's just real soft and kind of sigh. And I always tell the kids, be careful. Check your breath. It's important. Now, moving on. Oh, boy, this is a culprit. This is a big issue for a lot of kids. They can't get the L, cannot get their tongue to do this thing. And I will tell you, well, you probably know this, probably dealing with some of the things you do. There are some strategies to help strengthen the muscles in the tongue so that they can do this. Wash my mouth. Oh. Do that. And maybe don't look as weird as I do when I do it. Oh, yeah, you got to do it. Come on, do it. Oh. Now, here's the other thing. If I could get away from all that, I would tell you that I'd be walking around and say, let me hear you do it. Let me see you do it. Okay, good, you did it. Good job. Good. And then after we do that, I will tell them just a little bit of history about, it's a syllabic sound. Now, what do I mean when I say syllabic? Listen to it. It actually begins, to say the sound, it begins with an sound. It has a vowel sound in it. But it's not a vowel, it's a consonant. So they can get confused. And all you have to tell them is, like when we get to the word style, file, it sounds like two syllables. File, it's not. File, style, one syllable. L's bossy, likes to be a syllable all by itself. It does not get to, period. It just does not get to. Ready? And if there was ever one, you've got to get them watching your mouth, and I always do this stuff. Wash my mouth. And finish it off. Because if you do not, and cannot be detected. You can't hear them, and kids who have this problem, oh my goodness. Seriously a big issue for them. I love this one. Ready? Oh, hey, ice. Plain old Why plain old I bet you know the answer. And so do the kids. Remember when I explained why f was plain old f? Because there are some other phonemes that do and get a load. Oh, now see, some of you are talking while I'm teaching, and then it's really bothering me because here's the problem. This is one of the most important things that you're ever going to learn about We have the 5 special sounds for and then we have plain old and then we have one of the silent partners. And you're thinking, oh, so that's why phonics is confusing for kids. Yeah, but not really. Not if you attach a mnemonic verse to it, and not if you say, well, this is just plain old No, that's one of the silent partners. Or that's of Bert. No, that's of Bert. Oh, no, it's of earth in earthworms. You see how we're doing this? We're tagging it for the brain. And they don't forget it that way. And I like that they don't forget it, because those are hard things to teach. Really hard. Okay, ready? Eyes here. I'll say it, then you say it. Ah, O, U. Now you. Ah, O, U. Vowels A and U and O. Vowels A and, say it with me please. Vowels A and U and O and E. Say their name at the end of a syllable, you see? Now you weren't quite with me on that, were you?
I just remember the
Okay, okay. But because you weren't quite with it, notice what I did. And I don't expect you to do it exactly like I do it because that would be weird. But if you can, I just absolutely, with great intentionality, do this. I love this stuff. And I want the kids to know that I love this stuff.
Is that on the back of the card?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's all there. Okay, and here we go. D. The other tooth tapper that taps the back of the top two teeth. D. Now, something interesting about D and T. Let's check for voice. Ready? Let's do the T sound first. It's not the one you're seeing here. T. T. Is T a voice sound or a voiceless sound? It's voiceless because you don't feel the vibration here. Let's try D. 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 Ah, T and D. They're related. We call them cognates because we form them exactly the same way. T, t, d, d. The difference is voice box on D. Ready? J. And what do you think I'm probably going to say next? Yeah, right. J. Plain old J. And I love this. Words from English don't end with J. They just don't. They don't. Trust me, they just don't. If you find one, it's because a company or a corporation said, yeah, we're going to spell it with a J at the end because we can. And I'm thinking, okay, fine. But for kids, they really don't get that. It has to be a D, G, E, or a G, E if it's not a J. And since J's don't come at the end of words, guess what it is? It's a G, E, or a D, G, E, and you got to show them what that word is, and they'll figure it out. And it's really cool when they do. Really cool. Because then you start to understand, wow, they're really paying attention. And one of the things I ran into with little kids is they just pay attention to the letters inside the word. They would get to the first sound and maybe the second sound, which is usually a vowel, and then they quit looking. They didn't read through the word, then they need to. Okay. And I'm watching your body language, and we've been sitting too long. So let's stop for a second, and we're going to take a break. Stand up and drink something, go to the bathroom, and we're going to be back in about 3 to 5 minutes, okay?